Hello everyone, welcome to our video. This is the last video explaining what we're going to do with our swatch boxes. And in this video we're going to make swatches to go in the swatch box. Seems to make sense to me, so let's run with this and see what happens. All of our action is going to happen right here in Illustrator World. We already have our box set here, we have our die line. Now this box is 3 inches square. That means that any tiles that we make are going to go into this box need to be smaller than that. So I would say 2 3/4 is perfect. It'll give us like 1/8 of an inch all the way around. We're going to look at how we can set this file up, and we're going to do it just on the same file here for now. And then we can go back and forth and make sure everything's going to fit properly. So let's create a new artboard. It can be whatever size right now. It doesn't really matter. And I'm going to make a shape. We'll start just making a square tile. Use your rectangle tool and click once and it opens up your rectangle tool options. 2.75 2.75. Perfect square box. That should probably work. So I'm going to click OK. And there it is. We're going to look at this thing and see if it will fit inside. So I can visually drag this over to my die line and it fits. Look at all the room I have around it. Exactly 1/8 of an inch all the way around that thing. So it's going to be easy to put in there and it's going to be easy to get out. Hopefully. Maybe a little tricky because it's a perfect square, but we'll see how we can kind of edit that to suit our own needs. So I'm going to pull this over onto my new artboard. You can put it wherever you want to start. Now, we can start by, planning out what kind of colors we're going to use for this. So I'm going to open up my swatch library for my color books somewhere here. Solid coated. Sure, why not? Either solid coated or solid uncoated. I think you all have swatch books, so you can pick which one works best for you that matches the book you have. Don't use these color bridge ones because they're going to switch to CMYK. We want solid. And it opens up our Pantone swatches right here. Perfect. I like to keep it together with my color stuff. Now everything's all together. Now I'm going to go into this. I'm going to start applying colors. You're going to look through your book and pick out accurate colors. The ones on the screen are not even close to what you're going to get inside the book. So if you pick out of this little rainbow barf of colors here and then try to compare that to what you have in your book, it's not going to look the same. You might find some really nice bright colors and then you're going to find it in here, whatever, 185, and you're going to click it and it's going to look like this kind of dull, boring kind of red. It's a little brighter than this in real life. The reason they look weird in here is because it's impossible to replicate these colors that are in your books in RGB color spectrum. You'd have to go to a completely different color model to get accurate colors back and forth. But the screen is just a representation. We all know it's a lie. It doesn't matter. So there's my color. Now I'm going to put some of my branding onto this thing. I'm going to quickly make some branding, I guess. We'll borrow some type. There. And this is what everyone kind of does at first. I'm going to put my logo on here. And then I'm going to put what color it is. It's 185. But I call it ruby red. And that puts us down to like 10 points. We'll make it caps because we feel tough. And there we've got all the information. We're going to drag another box down here so we can see it. and we're going to be pumped. There's our color, there's our tag, our information, and then we're going to take this thing and we're going to drag them over to our swatches. But, uh-oh, something horrible is happening here. This is now way larger than that panel because I added this tag at the bottom to show what the color is. Not the greatest option. So we need to figure out how we're going to avoid that. And I think without this bottom tag, if I drag this up, this original box, let's look at the info for it, is 275 by 275. So this is perfect. So I'm going to use this little white bar. We can offset it. It doesn't need to cover the whole thing. Just big enough. I can make my B really small. Slap it on there. And then put my color on there. Feel like I need some kind of an element in between these two. Oh, that feels better already. Look at it. So now, if I take this over to here, oh my goodness, it fits. This is amazing. It's still good. We're still happy. That's how everything's going to work. Now, I need 12 different color swatches that I'm going to make. And those are going to be the 12 colors that we offer for the chair that we're promoting on this project. So, this is my basic swatch. Oops, left part of it behind. We have a couple options here. We can make individual pages for 12 different tiles, but we're going to set this up for production. Now, if this thing bleeds all the way to the edge of this form, and this is a square, so it just dead cuts, all we need to do is step this across and leave a gutter. And if we leave a gutter across there, it's going to give us room to have our bleed, so we won't have any weird white edges or another color kind of blending into it. If we say, try to do this, we'll leave the black line on it so we can see the edge of it. But, and this one will be reflex blue. This one will be orange. And this one will be purple. So I have 4 different colors on this thing. But they're all touching on the edges. That's not cool, because if we try to cut these apart, there's a strong chance it's going to be a little bit crooked on one of the sheets in the pile. Some of the blue is going to go onto the red. Some of the red's going to go there. Purple's going to be there. Everyone's going to be confused, and it's going to be horrible. Everything is terrible, so let's not do that. In order to make these properly, we need to build a gutter in between them. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to select all of it. You can kind of leave it on here. We can make the artboard larger, and we can make our own crop marks for this one, just to show how the whole thing works. We don't have the option of working off of our artboard in Illustrator, so we'll make the file together here. If we're working in InDesign to like paginate these and put them across a sheet, we have a slug area off of our form. We don't have that here, so we're going to build it ourselves. So I've got everything. I'm going to hit return. I'm going to move it 2 3/4 plus 1/4 of an inch gutter is 3. Oops. Vertical is going to be 0. Preview. Copy. And I just hit Command D to redo the same step again. I'm going to grab all these. I'm going to hit return. Copy. Command D. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 boxes on this form. There's white areas between them all. And that's okay because we're going to go in later and kind of fill those gaps in. I'll show you how to do that in a second. We can go in and kind of pick our colors again. We had our purple. I wanted my blue, orange, like basic colors here at first. Nice bright yellow one. Again, you're going to be picking these all out of your swatch books, so they're going to be much more accurate. You have a greater idea of what's going on with these things, other than just picking them out of random. Ooh, brown, eh? Another kind of purpley one, maybe real dark purple. And we'll do light. What number are we at? A light pink one there too. Oh my goodness, look at all these colors. There's a lot of color going on here. I think we could probably run these all together. They look pretty crazy. But we can do it. Now, we're going to use our computer to set up our crop marks on this thing. For this, I'm going to make them myself. I'll use my line segment tool. I'm going to hold shift. And I'm going to let the computer, again, do the hard part because, whoops, align to selection, obviously. So there's going to be my outside crop mark. And this only needs to be half a point. And you can go ahead and apply like the dye color that you used, just so everyone knows it's going to be, where is it? There it is, from your box. Oh. There. And then I'm going to make a copy of it. I'll align it to the edge here. And then I'll grab those two, enter. I'm gonna step at 3, which is what I stepped all the other ones, so that's that. Make a copy of this, turn it 90, align it to the top, and that's gonna be my top crop mark. .75 is the height of this, so I'm going to copy. Then I'm going to grab both of them again. 3, because we have that gutter in between them. There we go. Make it fit on the artboard here. So there are all of my crops that I'm going to use for this file. And I'm going to copy them to the opposite end of all of these little blocks. And you have to make sure they're off the edge, just like you were going to put crop marks on an actual Illustrator file. Like, let the program do it for you. If it's touching the edge, there's a chance we're going to see a piece of it. No one wants to see that. So we just drag it off the edge. It's fine. We're going to have to go in and compensate for our bleeds now, because right now this is going to have to dead cut right on that line. If it is off, we're going to have white. So we're going to take this box, expand it out, do the same with all of them. And I mean, you could do this from the start. You don't have to kind of go backwards like this, but I like to kind of click through and look at what's happening and control all these files. And you just need to go past those edges to make sure that everything is going to print properly and it's not going to be any weird overlaps. We're not going to see any areas where the cutter kind of missed. Stretch that over the edge. I guess I can think smarter and do more than one at once. Now you have to go in and rename all of these, of course, to whatever colors and codes you applied to them. I don't want that black line around it either. I think I'm going to delete that. Gone. Holy moly, look at these things. These are gorgeous. So that is a full production sheet of swatches. These are all going to get printed. They're going to get cut once along this line, once here. So that's going to be our gutter. And it's going to go 2 3/4 and another 1/4 inch gutter. Pretty neat. 2.75 is the size of this thing. And it's also 2.75 tall. Perfect square. Our gutter, 0.25. There we go. There's some big fat numbers to let us know how big this thing is. Those are off of our artboard, so it doesn't matter. They're not going to print. But all of our colors are going to print straight up now. We're going to be happy with this. That's how we set up or paginate a sheet. So instead of printing one thing at a time, which is pretty much never going to happen, we're going to flood a sheet with as many as we can fit on there. And then we're going to print them all out at the same time and then cut them down. Same thing goes with almost every piece of production that you do. For this initial die line that we made, I'll unlock that layer. Let's look at this. I'm going to make it a standard sheet size, so like 26 by 40. We can see the whole thing there. And you're not going to print one box. You're going to print 2 of them because they fit. Just barely, but they fit. And then I'm going to print 2 more. 2 more. 2 more. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 boxes on this thing rather than just printing one. These will get cut and then put onto the actual die cutter and they'll stamp out each one. Pretty crazy to think about how the actual production goes on past this, but things we need to start thinking about, because if we're designing a package, we need to figure out other issues that we might run into, like say how many we can put on a sheet, any other production things that happen, what kind of press is going to run on. I'm just going to scale this back down to fit because it was a weird size. So there's that. There are my swatches. Swatches are set up 2 3/4 with a 1/4 inch gutter. And then 2 3/4, 1/4 inch gutter, 2 3/4. So our actual page size that this is going to be when it actually prints will be, I think, 11 3/4 maybe. Let's check our calculator. Times 4 equals, plus 0.75 equals 11.75. Son of a bitch, I was right. And then this way, 2.75. Oops. Plus 0.5 because we have our 2 gutters, 8.75. So it's 11 3/4 by 8 3/4 from the outside edges of this form. Weird numbers that kind of will come back and haunt us as we go and do other production type things. But that's how big the sheet size is. We're probably going to print it on an oversized sheet because we need our crop marks and we need our bleed areas. So this is going to be printed larger and then cut down to size, which is kind of a neat little process, how everything's made. Now, these, I mean, if it's going to be made printed on like heavy card or something like that, probably will. These will all get punched out and then they'll sit inside this box perfectly. Now, on that note, if we decide I'm going to make another artboard here rather than starting a new file, and then I can keep kind of referencing back to my original die line here. Now, if I want to make an interesting shape for these things, the original pieces that we kind of based this project on were, where are they? Oh crap, I don't know where I put them. Way to pay attention to your files. I found them. Whew. Here they are. So this little pouch, which is about 10 or 11 inches wide and maybe like 4 inches tall or 4 inches deep, and it's got a big flap that folds over it. But inside this thing was all these little washers that were powder coated to match the color that the chairs were going to come in, which is cool. But they were just kind of banging around in this thing. They were all kind of smashed up. Like these little labels that are not centered on any of them bother me. There's a lot of things on here that I don't like. And it's a pretty decent company. The rest of the work that they do looks fantastic. They've got a nice little embossed piece here, a little slot to put business cards. There's a sticker that wraps around on the outside of the package. That's the actual catalog you get if you order that too. So it's nice. It's a nice little piece of design, but this functionally, it does not work for me. So we're trying to solve that problem with this. So we can make a round, perfectly round disc that's going to sit inside this box. That's cool. We can do that. We know that we can't go bigger than 3 inches. 2 3/4 is our target. If we go larger than that, chances are it might not fit, and then we're going to be angry because we have all these boxes and all these swatches and they can't get sent out together. So for this one, I'm going to make round ones. So I'm going to use my circle tool or my ellipse tool, which is L on your keyboard for ellipse. And then I'm going to click once and 2.75. 2.75. Okay. And that little circle should fit. Oh, it does. Perfectly inside that thing. That's good. That's what we're looking for. Now for this one, we're going to have to actually create a die line for these little punch outs because these are square cuts, so they're just going to cut along those guides. This one is round. There's no cutter in the world that's going to cut that out except a die. So we're going to set this up. And again, we're going to do multiples of them on a sheet. We're not just going to do one at a time because that's crazy. It would cost way too much. So there's my first one. I could sample my color off this. I could bring in the same boring little tag that I made on that one. Maybe it's going to sit right in the center of this thing. About there-ish. I like it low like this one. It give a little bit of asymmetric feel to the thing. So there is my new swatch. It's going to be round now. It's going to sit in there. You're not limited to just circles and squares. You can do whatever you want. But this is the way we're setting this up. So I'm going to start here. And I'm going to kind of set up my actual swatch with the die. And then I'm going to kind of separate them and make 12 of them on a page, just like we did up here. And that would get sent off for production. So there's my actual die that I'm going to use. I need to make this into a die. So I'm going to copy paste it in place and bring it to the front. I don't want to fill on it. And because I already have a die line swatch that I used for this, I don't need to make a new one. I can reuse the same color. It's a spot color. It's die line. I'm going to click it. And then I'm going to take this outside shape, the actual color, and I'm going to expand it. So now I've actually expanded out past the outside. We're okay with this thing. I'm happy with it. That's the main thing. So we've got a circle in the background that is now 3 inches, probably just under 3 inches. And this green line is my die line. So that's what's going to punch out of this. But again, just like our die and just like these square cuts, we need a bleed area. So we've compensated for that and added it on here. That's great. We need that. So now I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to take this guy. And because we're making this ourselves, we can make it however far we want. But I'm going to stick with 3. It's a nice even number. And it'll keep everything kind of tucked in nicely. Copy. So now I've got 2. Command DD for 2 more for do it agains. Return. 3 down this time. Copy. Do that again. So now I have my 12 different little swatches on one sheet. We can go back and sample the colors off of our other one. Oops. Click all these. V for selection, I for eyedropper. Click, 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 I. And again, you have to remember to change the number on this because there will be a number code applying to your Pantone. And whatever clever color you're going to call it. If you're going to call it colors, you can just use the numbers. That's fine. It's your thing. Do whatever you want. As long as it's going to print properly, no one cares. So, well, I mean, we do care. We don't want to see terrible colors, but... So there's my next set of swatches. So now I've ditched my squares. I'm just going to go with circles. These are amazing. I've got my die line on here. I can double check. Die line, perfect. I can select all of those die lines. Very carefully as I walk along here. Cut them, and I can put them right on my die line layer. So I know they're on their own spot. Perfect. Now you're not limited again to just a circle or a square. We have options here. We can do anything we want. I'll make another artboard right here. Maybe I think I like my square, but it seems boring to me. Because if this goes into that little 3-inch box, and I have to try to get my fat fingers in there to pull the thing out, it's probably going to be difficult. I'll have to just dump them out. So we can compensate for that. We can put an angle on the corner. We could round the corner. Look at this. Let's make sure we're the right size anyway. 2.75. There. Phew, it's still the right size. And then we'll have to add our bleed later. So there's our shape. I've got just one round corner. Maybe I don't like it. I want it to be square. Maybe I want to pick these 2 top ones. Maybe I want to get real crazy. Maybe I want all the corners round except that one. You could do that. It's your box. Why the hell not? It's your swatch. Maybe you want to make your die line out of an element from your logo. Whoa. Lock that. Maybe I'm going to use this B shape. Stick with my orange. So I have two fairly, left a piece. Two fairly complex kind of shapes here. You don't want to get too crazy with them, because if you have, like, you know, some kind of elaborate form that you've created for your actual logo for the thing, if it's like a crazy, like, I don't know, seashell or something, and it's got all these weird things on it, you don't want to cut out each one. You want to keep it fairly simple. We've got this nice little bee based on that bee. We've got this little thing. Maybe I want to kind of match up to that arc on the outside of my bee-ish. There. Now I've got kind of a neat shape going with that thing. I could do that. Why not? With these ones, again, once you get that figured out, you got to figure out how you want to step these things apart. We can take this one, because we know that we need to make it larger than that because it's got to bleed. I think it should work on this one. Oops, I grabbed everything. Move this. I'm going to grab this shape. Expand it out. Take this one. Apply my die line color. Oops. And the fill is going to have nothing. So there's my shape already ready to go. And you're going to take that. Step them across your form. This one's going to be the same thing. Now, if you have a complex shape like this, some weird things can happen. We'll look at that real quickly. If we copy and paste it down, and then we try to expand that out, I can already see something weird is happening. We've got an even shape around this top and side, and then this area, things get real tight and weird. No one likes that. So for this one, object, path, because it's a complex shape again, we're going to offset the path. And we can go 0.125. Done. Take this one. No fill. Stroke is our die line. So now we have this shape that's going to work for us. And again, you're just going to do the same thing. You're going to kind of step it across on a form. Make as many as you need. In our case, 12. You want to pack them as close as you can. Let's get rid of these ones. And we'll just stick with our bees. Oh, I lost some bees there. There we go. Pretend that didn't happen. And I'll just edit this artboard so that everything fits on it. We don't need to worry about crop marks with this because our die line is taking care of that for us. So I've got 3 different options. One's just squares with gutters. One's circles where we added a die line. And this one is big bees. And again, you have to change all the colors and stuff on them. But that's how our production works. And it's kind of good to get used to looking at how this thing's going to work. So when you're designing your work, whether it's a swatch or it's a box, or it's a business card, or it's a flyer, or whatever, any printed piece, a book, they don't print each page individually. They print like 48 pages at once, and then they fold those down. So neat kind of things that we're going to look at as we go through. Like, we want to try to take control of our file all the way from our idea to when it hits pre-press. If we let someone else have to mess with our files in the pre-press department, things kind of get moved and weird things happen. I like to take care of it all myself, if I can. So that's all done. I'm pretty happy with this. I'm just going to nudge these a bit because they look a little tight. And we have just our bleed area kind of filled in here. Sometimes they'll flood over this thing. I mean, in this case, we're going to have however many different colors. Traditionally, all 12 of these would be their own. So you'd have one sheet for orange, one sheet for red, one sheet for purple. We're just setting them up so that we can see how these things would print together. Might as well put the colors on these too. Oh, that one's already right. Oh, I'll use the red. Sample these all back over. Holy smokes. Phew, there we go. So that's all on there. We have our bleeds kind of constrained to that 1/8 of an inch, which is tons of room. If we had all of this area just flooding with color, it's going to end up costing us more because they kind of weigh the ink at the beginning and the end of your job. If we take way more and it's all getting thrown into the recycle bin because we just filled all these extra areas with color, it's kind of money you're throwing in the garbage. And if we can target this for specific sizes, if we know what output it's going out on, even better. We don't, so we're just kind of stepping across the sheet. So that is how we're going to set up our swatches. And they're all going to fit inside that box. Any of these will fit. Let's take this pink one. Pretend like it was cut down. And it fits perfectly inside there. You're not limited to these. I mean, you can use any shape really you want. You can give yourself a guide at 2 3/4 and just make like a random shape that'll maximize that form without completely getting stuck in there. But there's a couple options. Decent ideas. I mean, you all have super good brains, so I'm sure you're going to come up with something even better than this. And it's going to apply back to your branding that you've made here. So it's going to kind of reinforce that brand that you've created. And in the end, everything will work and everyone will be happy. We'll all share some high fives, and that will be the end of it. From that, save it as a PDF and upload it. But that's all for today. It wasn't that crazy.